Isha, such a pleasure to welcome you.
Thank you.
You teach here at UC Berkeley, and you are in a very important field which is touching the lives of millions of people across the world, which is water resource and clean water and clean sanitation. The access to these two things for people in schools, in towns and cities. So why don't I let you start with your work, and then we'll delve into it more.
Surely. So thank you for inviting me to speak with you. I have been working for now several years, 15, 18 years, on issues of access, affordability, acceptance of clean water and safe sanitation in both the domestic sector, in rural areas, and in the sort of peri-urban areas where people live in very crowded and low resource situations, not only in India but also other countries such as Mexico, Tanzania, China of late. So of course each of these situations is a little bit different, but I've also been struck by how there are many common barriers to achieving reliable, affordable, dignified access to water and sanitation in many of these low to middle income countries.
I'll pick up on the dignity word and take the example of India. There's been a lot of momentum in building toilets across India. Especially for women, it's a very big challenge, and they have to get up early in the morning or go late in the night in the fields, and this has become a very important necessity, and dignity is very, is integral part of this. This is one challenge, but there are also other challenges. So the only challenge I don't see in these things is the money part. Money is there, but putting the money to the right use is where the problem has been in many countries. What has been your research?
So I appreciate very much the point that you're making. I also very much believe that the core need for sanitation facilities is in fact safety and dignity. I absolutely agree. Public health, of course, but safety and dignity are what motivate people and what makes a huge difference to their daily quality of life. So I'm glad you picked up on the term dignity. I truly believe that that is at the heart of the development problem with respect to water and sanitation. I also agree with you that the country at this point, India certainly, China too, has resources. Maybe not infinite resources, but they have more resources than they used to. I do think it matters, though, not only what the amount of money is, but how the financing takes place. In the sense of, even today in India, there are many rural families, urban families, who are quite resource constrained if you want them to build a decent, safe, clean, maintainable latrine on their own, or with an extremely low subsidy. So I think the core point here really is not just that the money is available, but how it is dispersed and who takes responsibility for what proportion of the financing. To what extent does the household take responsibility? To what extent does the school or clinic take responsibility? And what help do they get from the state or the government? I do not believe that India is at the stage now where private financing can sufficiently take care of the latrine and sanitation, building, maintenance, cleaning out. You cannot just build the hardware, right? It's a whole process, right? I do not believe we're at the point now where private household and community financing is high enough that universal access will be assured. I have the feeling, I have the belief from my work that the hand of the state, while you don't want it to be a repressive hand, but the hand of the state is still pretty important in helping with the financing.
It gets very, at times, really unfathomable to see the huge disparity.
Yes.
On one side, we see the economic empowerment of hundreds of millions of people being lifted up from poverty to lower middle class or middle class and all that.
No doubt.
And on the other end, there's basic necessities of clean water, hygiene. And when I talk about clean water, this is fundamental to the development of the future generation.
Definitely.
If you look at the African example, that's where we keep referring to all the time, the rampant diseases that happen with dirty water, unhygienic conditions. I mean, this is, I think, fundamental right of human beings everywhere on the planet.
I so agree with you, and here again I feel compelled to agree with you when you pick up on the word inequality. Everyone thinks of India as a poor country. And on balance, we still are. On balance, I think that's still true. But more than being a poor country, we're a very unequal country. And the inequality, social layers of social inequality that make it impossible for people who are at the sort of bottom 20% of the economic pyramid to achieve just the simplest basic necessities of which are rights, as you rightly say, like water, like sanitation, like a decent public school, the absolute foundations, really, of today's and the future generations. To me, I feel that is much more driven by inequality in the Indian polity than poverty.
So allocation of resources is really where it should be focused.
It is really key, and it cannot happen. You must have been there at the earlier panels today, and Professor Dr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia said you really have to have concerned citizens holding the feet of the government to the fire. You have to have a demand, and you have to mobilize that demand, and this, I think, is really key in India today. It is a democratic government. It must respond to concerted bottom-up demand. And that concerted bottom-up demand for sanitation with dignity, not just some hardware, for public education where, children can learn, for clean water where I can drink a glass of water without worrying about if my child is going to fall sick from that glass of water. These very basic rights, I think, I would like to see not only more funds allocated, but a really concerted demand coming up from the bottom, because I don't really see how else we can reach the solution at the scale that we need the solution. Right? We need the solutions at scale.
Absolutely.
We cannot do it with well-intentioned private sector partnerships and so on, although they can absolutely, have enormous demonstration impact. I don't deny it. But the scale of the problem is so enormous that without, rising demand from the citizenry and coalitions across class from the citizenry, how do we expect it to happen?
Well, it's a great work. It's a lot of hard work.
It is hard work.
It's required work.
I've been one of those people who have to go out in the field, in the field work that I do, so I know.
But bless your heart. Thank you so much for coming.
You're very
Appreciate
kind
that
for
very
inviting
much.
me.